Hello, and welcome to Chapter 8, The Media, from the American Government Textbook, 3rd edition from Open Stax. So, today we're going to talk about the media and, of course, how that plays a role in politics in the United States of America. So, freedom of the press and an independent media are important dimensions for a liberal society. So, there really cannot be a democracy without freedom of press and independent media. There are countries out there in this world who have state-controlled media and control the narrative of everyday politics, right? In the United States, we don't have a government control of our politics. Now, there is sites like news sites like PBS who do receive public funding. However, there is no news cycle site that's controlled by the federal government that tells us what to think and what to say. And we do truly have here a democracy where we have freedom of the press that includes television and that includes radio as well. And so you can see here, of course, a campaign rally back in 2015 at the height and the start of the Black Lives Matter movement, exercising their freedom of speech. So what is media? The media is termed and defined by a number of different communications, such as television and print, and of course radio. So that is all in forms of mass media, right? How we communicate a message out there. Again, television, print, radio, and internet. Now, so we expect the media to cover all important political and social events in a neutral manner, in concise and neutral manner. However, that of course has been changing over the years. There's so much news cycles out there that, of course, not one news cycle cannot cover everything that's going on across the country. So, of course, there are various different outlet medias that report on certain specific topics. So the function of the media, right? They have different functions. So whether it's the newspaper, it's the radio broadcast, television. So of course they have been the media has been called the watchdog of society and of public officials, right? And one thing about the function of media, right? So a corporation behind the scenes must bring revenue to pay for its production. So for example, Disney owns at the recording of this video owns Disney. Disney owns ABC. And so of course that's corporate dollars that it has to bring in for its production. So of course, and some other individuals refer to the media as the fourth estate or the fourth branch of government, right? We have three branches of government, as you recall in previous chapters. We have three branches of government, and some would consider the media being the fourth branch because it is an it's a watchdog of what's going on in political society. So it also keeps a close eye on public officials. It used to be just on radio and newspaper and television. However, now with the internet and social media, there's 24/7, 365 eye views of public officials and watchdog of what's going on in the world, and every news cycle consistently changes. So of course you can see here some influences of where we get the where we get our news. So of course this was a little old. This is from 2014 from the Pew Research Center. You can see here how baby boomers majority get their news still from television. And of course, you can see here the millennials, the majority of them, you can see here get their news like from social media, specifically Facebook and YouTube, compared to baby boomers. So, the more function of the media also engages in agenda setting. So the media plays an important role as where the discussion of the topic goes. Again, the media does not have enough bandwidth to announce every single story going across the country, but it focuses on the major stories that people are interested in, and it controls the narrative in a sense, right? So of course, before the internet, traditional media determined whether citizen photography or video footage would become news. Now, of course, that's different. Anybody really with a camera, with a phone, can record or take pictures and become their own news cycle, being citizen photographers, to put that out there for the public. So of course the media also promotes public good by offering public debate. So you can see here an important figure in media. So the media format, each form of media has its own complexities. So again, every single news cycle, every single media outlet is different. So millennials are more likely to get their news from social media, right, than compared to baby boomers. Baby boomers, of course, are more likely to get their news from television and, of course, radio. So they're from the generation of television and radio, where millennials are more for the YouTube and Twitter. So just a quick question, in what ways can the media change the way a citizen thinks about government? So we talked about how the media plays a fourth branch of government and of course how they can set the narrative. So you can see here in 1983, 90% of media was controlled. It had 90% of media. There were 50 companies, right? 50 companies own about 90% of U.S. media. By 2019, only 6 conglomerates control these major outlets. So only 6 companies control the major news outlets. So again, as I mentioned, Disney owns ABC, right? That's one that owns, of course. You can see here other Time Warner owns CNN, right? And so again here now in 2021, it's even less. Now 4 companies control, right, the major news outlets. So of course Time Warner was bought out, and of course that goes with CNN. So the history of major media formats. So early news was presented by print press. So back in the day, back in the early 1800s and then in the mid 1800s, it was all about the press print. So people got their news from the newspapers. So of course here you see the penny press. Newspapers were really cheap back in the days, and of course, but there were lots and lots of newspapers because these newspapers were controlled by either unions or by rich individuals who wanted to portray the news how they see fit. And of course, radio news became to make an appearance in the 1920s and really brought communications to rural America. So now we start getting to see more individuals get higher news cycles, right? And World War II changed radio news forever. So of course, the news and desire for frequent updates for the war made newspapers with their once-a-day printing too slow, right? People wanted to know what was going on. So really, the radio, especially World War II, really started to make people wanted to know at the instant moment what was going on. So you can see here there was a golden age of radio when radio was the biggest thing, and people would literally sit on their couches and listen to the radio because you would hear theater on the radio, shows on the radio, and personalities talk on the radio. So again, radio, people would seriously sit and hear the radio. And of course, President Franklin D. Roosevelt brought the fireside chats, and they would talk to America, and people would listen. So again, then we saw the introduction of television, and the television really changed things. It allowed for politicians to connect with voters in a deeper way, right? Before television, many people were not able to see the president or speak or answer their questions in interview. Television changed all that. So it started to put a face to the actual politician, because before then, if you didn't see the president or major political figure in person, the only way that you could see or hear about that person was through newspapers and the radio. So of course, television brought a whole different format to that. You can see here where we start to see a change of television and politicians. So of course, there's a new media trends, right? Cable television even brought even more of an impact on news, because cable television, with the start of CNN, brought a 24/7 cycle to news. And social media really was one of the credits to help President Barack Obama have a successful election campaign, especially reaching out to youth. So again, how citizens gain information from the media. So of course, because of the availability of the internet and social media, some control the message has gone back to the hands of the president and candidates. So again, because of the internet and social media such as Facebook, Twitter, and such, Now politicians and other figures have controlled the way that news gets out about them. It used to be that the media would control how their message is taken out, but now a major political figure or any political figure running for office or is in office can get on social media and put out a video and put out their statement in real time instead of having to wait for the news cycle. And of course, the news cycles would pick that up. And people have become citizen journalists, right? So of course they start recording their own device and put it on the internet. So now you see in today's age where a lot of people start recording when they see something wrong and put it out for the world to know what's going on. So of course, forms of news coverage bias. There has become a racial bias though. However, it's not always glamorous, right? Episodic framing occurs when a story focuses on isolated details rather than looking at broadly at the whole issue. So that becomes when I'm just focused on some of the details, not the whole picture. So it's like basically saying one side of the story, not the entire thing. Thematic framing takes a broad look at an issue and skips the details. So you're looking at the big picture and not getting how you get to that specific issue. Racial framing, when a person or group is represented in a negative or assumptive light. So that happens a lot with minorities when the media portrays a particular individual from a minority community in a negative light. Priming, and of course, is when media coverage predisposes the viewer to a particular perspective on the subject or issue. So again, the media has become very influential as to how we see fit, and of course, how people perceive certain individuals. So government oversight. So there is government oversight. So all media is not free, as you know, there has to be some control. So you just can't say or do whatever you want in the radio waves. There has to be some control. And of course, liberties enjoyed by newspapers are always seen by U.S. court system. And of course, we have a regulatory. So the FCC enforces ownership limits to avoid monopolies and censors material deemed inappropriate. So if you watch television, there is between a 5 to 6 second delay as to what you see in person. So if you ever go to a large stadium that's outdoors, if you you go to an American football game and you're outside of the stadium and there's something that's going on inside the stadium, you'll hear the loud noises and crowd chants first before you see it on television. Because again, that 6 second delay that the FCC has put in case any inappropriate material shows, the FCC, the producers of the television have enough time to take it down before it's shown to the public. So you can see here the FCC in 2018. And of course, the FCC maintains indecency regulations again. So again, making sure that it's the public airways are free of obscene material. Now, of course, there is radio like satellite radio where there is much more obscene material that you may hear. But of course, that is internet radio or online or satellite radio that you have to pay for. It's not for public access. Well, that's just different. So, and of course, equal time rule states that registered candidates running for office must get equal opportunity and airtime and advertisements in non-cable television and radio stations. So you can see here a television coverage of the House Select Committee on the Benghazi. And here's a picture of former President Barack Obama. So bias in the cable news. So of course there has been some bias in the cable news. Individuals have seen that different news cycles give a candidate a bad rapport. So of course you can see here a study was done by the Pew Research Center on the tones of certain candidates. So you can see here on Fox News, that gave a positive light to, at that time, candidate Mitt Romney, compared to only 6% positive tone for President Barack Obama. And the opposite was for MSNBC, where Romney received only 3% positivity note with 71% negative tone. And so just a review question for you to think about. Have changes in media formats create a more accurate, less biased media? Why or why not? So think about that, write it down, and share it with others. So exceptions to freedom of the press. Again, we do have freedom of the press. However, there are exceptions and there are limitations. Not everything is 100% freedom. We have to have some limitations and some rules. So we consider that with slander and libel, right? The media does not have the right to commit slander, which is speaking false information with the intent to harm the individual or entity, or libel, which is print false information with the intent to harm the person or entity. What that means is you cannot print and or say things on the media as a slander or libel way to harm someone's reputation when it's false. So, for example, if you don't like somebody, you can't get up and say on the media or write something for everyone to know false information about the person you don't like. For example, if you don't like somebody and you start saying, well, that person was a violent person and beat up people and has a disease when that person really doesn't, and the only reason you're saying this stuff is to harm them and slander them, then you're going to get in big trouble, and which may result in lawsuits where you can lose major money. So you have to be careful of what you say. You just can't say whatever you want a particular individual because you don't like them, which can harm them or do something more harm to them. Classified material. The media may have only a limited right to publish material that the government designates as classified. So yes, there is a freedom to get government documentation. However, the government can deem some information as classified and may black it out. So have you ever seen in the media that sometimes there's stories being covered about the federal government, and the federal government may provide documents, but a lot of times it's blacked out for the reason it's being classified information that may harm the public. So for example, if a news reporter is out there with the U.S. military in a foreign country, and they tell the reporter, you cannot state our location because if you do, you're going to put up some harm's way because the enemy may be listening. They have to listen to that, right? And the same thing with government documents, right? It may be blacked out just for the safety of U.S. citizens or individuals or from people harming us, to make sure they don't harm us. So thank you for joining me on this Chapter 8, the media, and thank you.